Good morning and welcome to the live exchange. I am Dr. Pamela, and today we are looking at the dynamics of the family. So much to talk about. Today I'll be joined by four guests total. This first hour, I'm going to be joined by Sean Simmons and D'Amico's Chambers, and we're going to be talking marriage, adoption, incarceration, all of the things that somehow have an impact on the Black family. So we're going to look at all of those things while we continue to face grief as a society. We must also take heed to the growth and positive impacts that come with the process of change. Change is not always easy, change is not always fun, and change does not happen overnight. So with that in mind, we are going to be talking about the impact of all that's happening in our society on the Black family. And I have two phenomenal Black men who are joining us this hour and two more phenomenal Black men who are joining us during the second hour so that we can really dig deep into this conversation. So we are going to be looking at how the Black family is being impacted by current events, including some really interesting and disturbing things that have been said by some recent politicians, and looking at creating positive trends in the Black family, and as well as the Black family's experience with adoption, whether they are being adopted into a family or being brought in. So it'll be really interesting. Our guests have some great perspective. D'Amico's is going to really drill in on marriage, and Sean is going to talk about his two books on children's books on family. So I'm really looking forward to this show. And then at the second half, we're going to have a conversation with a couple who has adopted. So stay tuned. I want you to get involved in this conversation. Join us on Facebook Live, add your comments, tell your stories, ask your questions. We are here to respond in real time to everything you have to say. So get ready for a great show and incredible dialogue today on the Live Exchange. Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and today we are looking at the resilience of the Black family and just really considering all that we've had to overcome just as individuals, let alone considering what it means to hold together a family through all of that. So, from slavery to Jim Crow to the Civil Rights Movement to today. The institutional racism has not gone away. It is still here, and it has always threatened the sanctity and the unity of the Black family, and yet we continue to overcome. So I want to have this conversation with a couple of gentlemen who are going to help me and chime in on their perspectives. First, let me bring on our first guest, Sean R. Simmons. Now, Sean Simmons is a children's book author, mental health counselor, originally from Charleston, South Carolina. He's currently living in Atlanta, Georgia. He has a bachelor's degree in communications from Savannah State University. He has a master's degree in higher education from Mercer, and he's currently pursuing a master's of arts degree in mental health counseling through Wake Forest University's online program. His two books are Together We Make a Family and The Day My Dad Turned Invisible. I love it. All right, so Sean, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to see you.
All right. And I in your bio failed to mention that you are a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
That's true.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I think I would just love to hear just a little bit about your children's books and what compelled you, to write these two stories. The first one, We Make a Family, and the second one, The Day My Dad Turned Invisible.
Right. Yes, I always enjoyed writing, even when I was, real young. I started out writing comic books when I was probably 7 or 8.
I love it.
So I would make my own characters, make my own stories, draw pictures. And then once I got older, I kind of put it to the side. 'Cause, when you become a teenager, you get your interest kind of sways to different things. With a big girl.
Teenager then. I love it.
Right. So Once I graduated from college, I started to write again. I actually did it to relieve stress.
Okay.
So that's one of my ways I kind of relieve my anxiety and my stress and stuff like that. So I started writing. I would at first make up stories, but then I started to write stories that were based on my life. So I have a lot of stories, but the only ones I put out so far are the ones that are based off experience that I've been through.
Okay.
And at first, I never really thought about actually making them into books, but I kind of got inspired I actually have a frat brother who has a book out as well. And he actually put his book out, and I had no idea he was doing a children's book. And that kind of motivated me to go ahead and put mine out.
I love it. I love it. That's great. And speaking of comic books, I picked up John Lewis's 3-book series, comic books. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but it's pretty awesome that, he also was into comic books among many other things.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So so I'm gonna go ahead and bring on our second guest, and so we can get this conversation going. But I'm definitely gonna want to hear a little bit more about the 2 books that we put out. But next, let me bring out Demekus Chambers. So just let me. I had it. There it is. So Demekus is a philanthropist, a cloud entrepreneur, a fear coach, and he helps Black men make the first step into business and to become the man that they've dreamed of. Welcome, Demekus.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, welcome. And I apologize for your name being misspelled.
No, it's tradition now. It's tradition.
Yeah, right.
I actually give tokens to those who can pronounce it right now. It's gotten so bad. So far, I've given out 3 in my lifetime.
Oh, did I get a token? Pronounce your name, please.
It's Demekus.
Demekus, yes. Okay.
Yep.
So I think I've said 2 different versions of your name so far.
Yeah, I used to have this. I used to be nonchalant about it until I got older and was like, well, if these white people can learn how to say these Russian people's name and think they're unique, they can learn to say my name as well.
I agree, 100%. Demekus, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, so I'm curious to know how you got into coaching the fear, around this area of fear in Black men.
Right. So it happened one day when I wanted to get into life coaching. Of course, I was watching a lot of Tony Robbins, Les Brown, etc. And I thought I saw that I had really good social skills. I saw that I enjoyed creativity, and I saw that I had some business acumen. So I wanted to find a career that's lucrative. Well, I looked up becoming a psychologist, but I was like, dang, they don't make no money. You talking about $58,000 a year for a year's education? I was like, oh man, nah,
not quite like engineering.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to find a way to make money, but still be able to help people in a social ways that that I best can while developing those skills. So I pursued coaching. During when I was in the coaching training, found out that I was the only one in the room who's not of the higher tier education level. Not only was I the only one in the room that didn't have a master's or a bachelor's of sort, I was the only male in the room and the only Black male in the room out of about 42 women. So it just showed me it was a need. Then once I got into coaching, I learned that if I really wanted to become successful in it and really impact lives, I wanted to take on the biggest challenge that I felt that the world had faced, which was fear. So I was like, everybody has an issue with fear. And I feel that fear is a critical analyst point, according to Dawkins, that a critical access point. But I was like, I want to do something that affects everybody, that can cause immediate change, drastically change their life. And that's tough. That's something that no one really understands and tackles. And so I didn't understand how much no one really understands it until I started studying it. Even all the reports that would come out about it, the books that would come out about it, it was a lot of the research was still based. A lot of the results were still kind of like just in development. They were still pending. There was no finite result or analysis of how fear works and etc. Even when they talked about the amygdala. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, it's good. Wait, so we're going to go to a break really quickly, and then
all right.
When we come back, we're going to go into some trending topics, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on both of those. We'll be right back. Okay, so trending. So this past Friday, August 28th, 2020, as if 2020 didn't already have enough blows for us, we experienced the tragic loss of actor Chadwick Boseman. And Chadwick Boseman. I mean, I get emotional just looking, and just thinking about it. I remember just how exciting it was to see him premiere in Black Panther, but then all of the films that he's done since then. He had his cancer diagnosis in 2016, and in that year alone, released 3 films: the Captain America, Gods of Egypt, Message from the King, and then 2017 he released 2 films, 2018 2 films, 2019 2 films, 2021, and there's still more coming. There are a few more films that have yet to be released. He recently married, so his wife was by his side, and it's just a huge blow. So we have to acknowledge the the talent and the contributions of Chadwick Boseman to film industry and really to Black culture. Would love to hear from Domikos and Sean in regards to your kind of thoughts and your reaction when this first, kind of hit the news. I'll go ahead and let Sean go first.
Right. When I heard it, I thought it was a joke, and it got to the point where I was hoping that it was a joke. Then I read how he passed was through colon cancer. That kind of hit me a little bit harder because I lost my grandfather from prostate cancer.
Yeah.
So, and that just made me think about my own health because he was still young.
Right.
43, that's young. I'm 33.
I'm 43. That hit me like, what?
Right.
Yeah.
So, it just made me think about my own health and, oh man, like I need to start going to the doctor more because you never know. They said that, he caught it at stage 3, so he might have had it prior to that and not know.
Yeah.
So that kind of just opened my eyes to that, even though I already knew that in the back of my mind, but it's like when it happens to somebody like that who you look up to, like it hit me kind of hard. So like I compare his death to celebrity wise, I compare his death to Kobe's death because even though Kobe was like a tragic accident, still there's somebody who you look up to, they say, right.
Yeah.
He was a superhero. Kobe was a superhero in a different type of way. So
yeah, we took Kobe pretty hard too. That was a tough one as well. So this year is just way too much.
Right.
So Domikos, what are your thoughts? I know that there's been some dialogue on your page about this, especially about what happens next. Oh, you're muted.
On my page and inform.
Oh no, we hear you now.
All right. Yeah. Okay. No, I just said I like to keep things informative and exciting on my page. So when it came to Chadwick, honestly, it was one of those things that happened where I've grown so accustomed to the death that a lot of it, it hasn't shocked me anymore. What it's really doing is causing me to just be more appreciative of the time that we do have and work harder at the things that I'm doing currently, because this is a man who had colon cancer for the last 4 years, produced several films, did a ton of philanthropy, a ton of volunteerism, a ton of public speaking, donating, etc. And so I was like, if he can do all that over 4 years with colon cancer, I can go outside and, just contribute more to the world in ways that are just, aside from the ways that are just more comfortable and convenient for me, especially during this COVID. So, it was more inspiring. And I felt like his James Brown film was definitely underrated. That's a historic film. And I think that film is even better than Black Panther because I think it is a Black Panther film because it's actually a true story. But I think that's a great film. But anyway, when Chadwick passed, it was just like, you're a young Black man. You got to watch out for your health. I was like, oh man, I got to go start getting my prostate exam.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know it's colon, but
Yeah, but that colon cancer will be is very undetectable in the first 2 stages. So it's not uncommon that it wasn't discovered until the 3rd stage, which is that's alarming.
Right.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
They say if you detect it earlier, you have like a 90% rate of beating it, and like they say you have a high percentage of beating when you detect it, but
right. I mean, and you don't even, so here's the thing with colon cancer, they don't really even pay medically or for insurance for you to get colon cancer screenings until you're 50. And
wow, I didn't know that.
And so what does that say about, what it means to take care of ourselves when we're thinking the experts know we don't need to worry about that till 50. And yet, Chadwick was in his 30s when he was first diagnosed. So, yeah. So we have a comment from Jeremy Grissom saying his death is a reminder of how fragile life is.
Absolutely. Don't take it for granted.
With that said, Sean, I know that your second book, The Day That My Dad Disappeared, or is it My Father Disappeared? I'm sorry.
The Day My Dad Turned Invisible.
The Day My Dad Turned Invisible. Tell us about that. What you don't have to give it all away, but the gist of that story.
Yeah, that's my second children's book I put out. Like I said before, all my stories are based off of things I've been through. I just write them in children's form, so they can have an understanding of it. But that's actually a true story. The first book was inspired by a true story. That book was actually a true story, based on when I was 7 years old. I found out my dad had passed away. So the story just kind of follows me throughout the day when I found out my dad died and how my family had to tell me and how I really didn't understand because I was only 7 years old. He passed in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
So I remember just getting off the bus and all my family just looking sad and I didn't know what was going on. And I think my mom or grandma said, your dad passed away. And I'm 7 years old. I don't know what that means. Right. I just see everybody crying. So I think I'm supposed to be sad and cry too until later on find out what it really means.
Wow. Yeah, that's a story that really needs to be told as children are dealing with tragedy all the time, So I really appreciate you writing that. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and get into a little bit more discussion, about the family. And I actually want to show you all a clip that we're going to discuss about adoption. So stay with us. We'll be back.
All right.
Statistically, my brown son is more likely to commit a violent offense over my white sons. Okay? So the fact that in his head, he would be more careful around my brown son than my white son, that doesn't actually make me angry. That makes that police officer smart because of statistics.
All right. So every time I see that, this is really disturbing. So this was Abby Johnson. She's a former Planned Parenthood worker turned anti-abortion activist. And she posted this video in June claiming that it would be smart for police officers to racially profile her adopted Black son, and justified her beliefs, as you heard, with incarceration statistics. Now, I'm curious. I actually want to hear from both of you on this. From Demekus, I'm really interested in hearing your take on this idea that it is smart for police officers to racially profile her son. It seems, go ahead, I'll let you go. Oh, there you go. You were muted for a second there. So I don't think we can hear you. 1 second. Yeah, we can't hear you. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's jump to Sean, and then we'll come back to Demekus. Sean, and Sean, what I wanted to ask you about was this idea of adoption, and when a child is adopted by a parent of a different race and they profile that child, or they don't really seem to have an understanding of that child's experience. I mean, what are your thoughts about that, and what kind of challenges can that present?
I mean, it's definitely a real situation. You do see adoptions becoming more and more common right now. And even the adopting of different race babies is becoming more and more common. So I feel like while I'm not against it, I do think about, that child, maybe a white child being adopted by a Black family or vice versa. Because actually that's my first book is about adoption, a young Black girl being adopted by 2 white parents. And of course, at times, there are going to be some things that those parents might not be able to educate that Black child on, that they might not have experienced just because they've never been Black. And that kind of makes me think about the show This Is Us. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
They adopted the one Black son, and that one episode when they were at the pool, and she didn't understand that Black skin is different from white skin. So she didn't know he might need a different type of lotion or sunscreen. So just like little things like that can have an effect on you as you get older that you're not aware of or familiar with.
So if you say little things like that have an effect on somebody, imagine the largeness, I can't even think of the word right now, of the impact on this child of this mother who said this. Demekus, are we able to hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Beautiful. All right. No, what I was saying is, why are we giving these white women the attention that they want? The thing about what she said is just so tragic, and she's inaccurate. Just because Black folks are locked up for crimes at a higher rate than whites are, doesn't mean we commit the most crimes. There's evidence that shows there's prejudice because we're more likely to actually go to jail and get arrested and get convicted of a crime versus the white people are. So no, that's not likely at all that your brown skinned son is going to commit the crime he's more dangerous than your white child. Your white child is probably more dangerous. He's likely going to be the one that's going to burn down the whole community. All right. So I didn't like that at all. But again, we keep giving these women the attention they want is trash. I do want Black people to start to get on the stop looking for acceptance, white acceptance, and trying to prove these people wrong, and just live your life and grow your wealth and fight back whenever you feel you have to defend yourselves. These people are entrenched in their beliefs. They're going to believe what they want to believe. The only thing that can change their mind is experiences in life. You got to let life do its job and its work and combat their hate and ignorance with wealth building. That's the only way to overcome all of this. White people respect 2 things in America: wealth and the potential of violence. Those are the 2 things. So as long as you get your guns to protect yourself and you stack your bread, get your bag, hey man, life will do its job.
So what I really am most concerned about in this case, because I agree with you 100% about we giving attention to people who are wrong. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But my concern is this son, and my thought is whether or not, to me, social services should have been immediately sent to that house to get that son. And so the bigger question is about this question of adoption and placement, and really whether or not children, this needs to be considered when children are being adopted. Black children particularly are being adopted into other races and other families. I think Sean raises some really good points that there are some everyday things that, of course, we wouldn't, other people wouldn't understand unless they've been there. But now we have, when I see things like that, it causes grave concern in me. Not so much about the outlandish things she said. I really could care less about that, but more so about the well-being of this child who is living in her home. What do we as a community do to protect our children?
Welcome to being Black. a black boy. You know, he's gonna have to learn their lesson now or later. You know, that's the unfortunate part, and sometimes fortunate because oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, my bad. All right, yes. I mean, that's the unfortunate part because it does build a lot of character and black kids a lot earlier than white kids. But you know, our social care system itself is just poorly constructed. You know, the social workers themselves are underpaid. You know, the foster homes are underfunded. I mean, you know, this is all systematic. You know, it's not necessarily at the hands of the individual black paying tax citizen to solve this. You know, this is systematic. We got to get out there and run for office, and we got to elect persons to get in office and do the things that we need to reconstruct our social systems in ways that's going to benefit the children.
Right.
But yeah, his brown son. Welcome to this life as a black man. You know,
I want to add. I agree with a lot of what he's saying. I was watching an interview a couple of days ago, and somebody said the system isn't broken; it's working how they meant for it to work.
Absolutely.
And that makes a lot of sense because when people say the system is broken, it's not really broken. It was never written for us to begin with, because when it was written, we were being, you know, segregated or enslaved during those times anyway. So when it was written, it hasn't been updated. It hasn't been changed. It was written back then for them, not for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I read stories all the time. I read one recently about a judge who trialed two young adults, one black male, one white male, same age, both had no priors, but the black male got years in prison and the white male got like 1 or 2. So it was like stuff like that's just crazy.
This is what's skewing these incarceration rates, because it's really
absolutely.
You know, the system is doing this, and we've got to. And I agree wholeheartedly, D'Amicos, that we have got to infiltrate the political system. That's the only way things are going to change, is if we have a seat at the table, and if we are leading the table. You know what I mean? So, so with that said, we're going to go into a little bit of research. We're not going into a little bit of research. So, but what I want, but I'm going to transition a little bit into this idea of Black marriage. So there's a lot of opinions flying around about Black marriage. You know, Black people, they don't stay together. One of the most disturbing things that I see a lot on social media are Black women who have this platform that are anti-Black male, and Black men who have a platform that are anti-Black women. And and I know this is not the majority. I know this is kind of like what D'Amicos was saying, why are we giving those voices attention? But what it does is it's contagious, and it makes people think, maybe they have a point. And I'm seeing this thing pick up with these opposing sides. And I don't think by any means that it is the majority or it's that pervasive, but I do think it's dangerous. And it's very dangerous, in my opinion, to Black marriage and Black relationships. I'm curious to know what you all have seen, particularly you, D'Amicos, as you guys, when I say you guys, on your page, there's a lot of discussion around Black marriage. There's a lot of emphasis on Black men getting ready, preparing themselves for life, for their purpose, and marriage being one of those. What are your thoughts about this whole divisiveness and what we need to do to stay focused on staying together?
Yeah, so one of the big things I try to advocate for is for Black men to get married, simply because Black men mostly don't know how to have sexual relationships with women without producing kids. So kids who grow up in married, I'm just saying, kids who grow up in married households do way better than kids who grow up in single parent households. If Black men weren't procreating with Black women, I wouldn't have no qualms about it. I'd say live your best life, but the kids do worse in single parent homes than they do on average than married households. Also, Black men, we do better when we're under the social partnership construction of marriage. We become better. We become better health. Everything in life drastically improves.
Yeah, I know
wealth,
wealth a
yeah,
lot with
yeah,
marriage.
you know,
Yeah.
so and the thing is, it's like I see it on both sides. I see black women who have a disdain for black men because they worship white men, and I have see black men who have a disdain for black women because they want to be baddies. You know, the
Well, so
black men themselves want to be baddies.
let me just cut in. The women that I see that are hating on black men, they don't like men. They don't like white men either. They just don't like men. So
Yeah, I know that's
and they don't like
that's
women. So it's not even that they are lesbians. They just don't like people. You know.
that's true. That's true. Are we about to cut into the break?
Yeah, we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. All right. So the science today. So there's a combination here of statistics and a little bit of context in terms of why these statistics may be what they are. So first we have this idea of we're just looking at incarceration. Black people make up 13% of the U.S. population, but 33% of the prison and jail population, while Latinos make up 18% of the U.S. population and 23% of the prison population. This kind of just goes back a little bit to what we were talking about the inflation of incarceration for Black people. In 1990, 43% of Black men this is about marriage, have never been married. And in 2019, it was 51%. During that period, the percent of Black women who were unmarried increased from 37% to 47%. Another statistic that is important to point out by the CDC is, while these are the statistics about marriage, when we look at fatherhood, the CDC found that Black fathers are actually the most involved with their children of all other races, which is, I think, very important to highlight because it then, it causes me to ask the question, so what is going on with the other elements of life, with marriage, with this whole idea of incarceration? Well, when I look at this research on trauma, there was a compilation of research studies that were done as it pertains to trauma in different cultures. So it looked at trauma for people who were living in Ukraine, some war-torn areas, for those Holocaust survivors, for Native American and Canadian Native populations, for African Americans, and the common thread was that there are higher rates of depression and depressive episodes, of suicide rates and so forth. But what was unique for African Americans that I thought was really interesting is that we had reported high rates of perceived discrimination and higher rates of uncontrollable hyperarousal, feelings of alienation, worries about future negative events, and perceiving others as dangerous. So it's interesting because depressive, suicidal type responses were not included to the degree that it was included for these other cultures, but it was more of a cultural fear of being a part of this culture that rejects you. And so I found that really interesting because for the trauma for us, there's not a post that's happening here. Many of us are still living in that trauma. So there's not post-traumatic, it's continuous traumatic. So I wanted to just ask, just kind of engage you all in a conversation about that. And I'm going to reach out to Sean for this one. When you are, you're pursuing, you're a counselor and you're pursuing a degree in it as well. What do you see in terms of your perceptions of how African Americans are responding to the traumas that we're experiencing?
I think, 2020 is like a prime example of how a lot of people of color are feeling just from all these protesting that have popped off during the pandemic. I myself, just from taking these classes that I'm taking, I've learned a lot about myself and my own trauma because I've been able to look and kind of relate it to the material I've been reading. And, I have anxiety. I have anxiety real bad. And it gets to the point where we have these police shootings, these unarmed Black men.
Yeah,
I don't even watch the videos anymore because when I watch them, it like ruins my whole day, sometimes 2 or 3 days. And it's like, it kind of puts me on edge. And like every time I get in a car, I'm like, okay, let me drive the speed limit. Let me put my blinker on. I don't want to give the police no reason to pull me over. And it's like, other races are people who are not of color may not have to even worry or think about little things like that. And it may seem small, but to have to worry every day while you're driving somewhere, or every time you see a police car pull up behind you, your heart rate goes up, you start sweating, and you may not have done anything wrong, but as we've seen, it doesn't matter all the time whether or not you've done something wrong or not. So I feel like a lot of the stuff that's portrayed in the media that we watch, it kind of that's traumatic. It's going to cause trauma. You know, watching George Floyd, how he was killed, and all of these police shootings every other week. It's a buildup. It's going to cause traumatic stress, whether you feel it or not. You might feel it whether you can't sleep at night and don't know why. You know, it's little things like that that's going to affect your mental health as the days go.
Yeah, and it's just the offense is just living, you know, just doing everyday things. And I think that this is probably why the trauma in these studies look different for African Americans than it does for other cultures, because it is just kind of an attack on our everyday living.
Exactly.
So, Domingos, when you work with this whole concept of fear, how does fear play into this and into our trauma? I think you're
all down to it. Oh,
you're good. I'm sorry.
all right, it's all good. The producer said, "Yeah." All right, so when it comes to fear, it all boils down to most people have a fear of lack of significance or feeling insignificant. That's what it all boils down to. What I've also learned in working with hundreds of people is that, or clients, is that most of their fears root from some type of trauma that occurred during their adolescence, during their childhood. And it's those immature, emotionally defensive perspectives that we adapt as adolescents, that we learn to accept as it to be, and we carry with us that perception up until our adulthood. And so this is why you can see many individuals who, you can be mature, you can be successful, you can be, on top of your A game in your career, whatever, but still carry a perspective in one area of a child,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's what it's all boiling down to: insignificance. This is why people are reacting, blowing up things up, committing suicide, shooting things. They want to be seen. They want their existence to be validified. And when those things are not happening, this is total chaos and disrupt. It's going to be disruption for everyone if I can't get what I want.
Interrupt with a question about, just to go a little deeper on that. How do you see fear manifest in Black men? What does that look like in the Black men?
That's a great question. So usually when it comes to Black men, it's rooted in, a lot of it is the fear of not being good enough, time and again. It's usually he does either, and it shows its way in how he feels about his money, and how he feels about his body, and how the way he feels about his ability to love, his emotional capacity. It's always showing up in a few very ways of just not feeling like he's good enough. And so what happens is you have a lot of Black men who, they avoid relationships, they avoid commitment, or they even become, they become anti-relationships, or just, they don't really give their fullest, because again, they don't feel that they're good enough to be with in the first place because of this one area of their life that they feel that they're lacking in. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to Black men.
And this
especially if you're short.
And so this is the body thing that you're talking about, that the whole, because I mean, and that's something that we don't think about as women a lot in terms of how men feel about their bodies. I think this is the first time I've heard anybody verbalize that before. So that's interesting.
Men are very subconscious about how they look. It's just that, we know a lot of the time we can mask it with our wallet. So we try to use our wallet, but when you can't mask it with your wallet, that's why you see a lot of these ugly dudes who are usually the ones that really hates women or against women, because, they like, I don't have nothing to compensate with my lack of looks. So, you know, I'm gonna lash out at the world.
See, and I've always wanted to do a show on that, except I don't want to give it too much attention, because but it is a real issue. There is a whole movement of men who have decided they are not going to be engaged in a relationship, involved in a relationship ever with anybody. So it's interesting.
And I just want to say this one thing. And have you noticed when they don't engage, they also don't want other people to engage in relationships?
Right. It's a movement. Yeah. It can't just be them. It's a whole movement. So I want to give you each an opportunity, as we're getting close to the end of the hour here. I want to give you each an opportunity to, just kind of share what it is you're doing and how people can get involved with what you're doing, how they can reach you. So we'll start with Sean.
Yes. What I'm doing right now, as you mentioned, I am in school, getting my second master's degree in mental health counseling through Wake Forest University online program. I also am interning as a substance abuse counselor downtown Atlanta to be able to become eligible to get my LPC, my counseling license. Also, I'm a children's book author. I have 2 books out. Actually, my first book, Together We Make a Family, sold out last week.
Wow.
Actually, I didn't anticipate people ordering it when my second book came out. If you type my name in Amazon, both books come up. So I guess people were grabbing both of them to get that free shipping.
Yep.
Yeah. So my second book, The Day My Dad Turned Invisible, that is still available on Amazon. So if you have a child, check it out. If not, I still feel like it's a great pickup. And I got one more book on the way, so I'm always working. I also have a coloring book I'm working on that relates to the Black family as well.
So with the latest book, that is it out now or is it for pre-order? It's out now.
It's
right?
out. Mm-hmm. Yep, okay. It's out. It's available on Amazon, and it can get shipped right to you.
So question, what is the most important message you want children to get out of that last book about losing a parent or a loved one?
Well, the message basically is the message that I shared, that what I learned was, just the understanding of what death really means. And my motto is to turn tragedy into triumph. That's my motto for both books, based on an experience. And basically what the tragedy to triumph is with that second book, with my father passing away, is I use the fact that he's watching me and everything I do. So based on the decisions I make, I imagine him being right there watching me make those decisions.
I love it. That's got to be a motivator. I love that. All right, thank you. And then, so D'Amicos, can you give us, just kind of what you're up to, what you're doing, and how people can get involved and reach you?
Yes, yeah, sure. Sean, I'm definitely going to support one of your books, bro. I think that's what you're doing is beautiful and definitely needed in our community. So what you can do is you can go on YouTube and look at, search for my podcast, Black Men and Cigars. I do it with my best friend, Mark. It's intellectual conversation, but just really raw. So I have that. I'm not taking on any clients right now at the moment. But you can always follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Facebook, D'Amicos Chambers, or Instagram, Fearless Black Men. I'm also a writer for ConsciousBlackMen.com. If you want to check out some of my articles there. And I also have a group called Black Cloud Engineers. Excuse me. It's my private Facebook group, and what I basically do is I help Blacks transition out of careers that they're in into lucrative paying cloud careers. And we're partnered with a company now that's actually going to provide the actual training and career guidance for you to get those lucrative cloud engineering careers that require no college education, even no high school education. That, and then also I want to give a big shout out to Gary Davis, like I always do, who has Boys Up, Next Level Boys Academy. They have a nonprofit where they basically help a lot of Black youth around the country, but mostly in the South, turn their lives around. I mean, he's helping Black men, Black young men, boys from ages 14, the oldest I've seen is 24, become entrepreneurs, build businesses, get jobs, tennis shoes, sneakers, cell phone bills paid, etc. This is not a presentation boring program. He does a Zoom every Saturday. It always fills up. That I don't go to church, but I do tithe to his program every week.
Oh,
And so yeah, check him out. The Next Level Up Boys Academy, Gary Davis. But
Ooh,
yeah. Oh, and go get my book on Amazon, The Other Side of Fear. I keep forgetting to promote my own.
you should have said that first. No, that's
I know, right? You know.
Oh yeah, I have a book.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't muted.
No, yeah. So I have one more question, Domikos, and you have 30 seconds, 25 seconds, 10 seconds to answer. So I know that your page, what I appreciate about your page is that you're talking to Black men, but you don't silence the Black women. You allow us to engage as well. Who is your page for? And, and what do you hope that we'll get out of it by following?
That's a great question. My page is for Black men, ambitious Black men who are just looking for guidance, and women Black women especially, are always welcome to the conversation. Anybody's welcome to the conversation, no matter your education level, career level, but it's specifically, my post is specifically catered to ambitious Black men who are just looking for life guidance.
Love it. All right. You might find yourself a mate there on his page, y'all. So go ahead.
Hey, there's some ballers on there. I'm just so glad there's some ballers.
And definitely check out Sean's books on Amazon, as well as Domikos' book on Amazon. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. This has been wonderful. So we are going to go to a break, and then when we come back, we will have our next guest, the Henderson family, and we'll be back. All right. Welcome to the second hour of the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and good afternoon for those of us who are on the East Coast. We are again engaging ourselves in compelling dialogue around humanity and making change in life and making a difference in life. And so I'm Dr. Pamela, and on today's show for the second hour, we are going to have Anthony and Jason Henderson join us to discuss their family and some of the challenges and victories that they have experienced over the last 20 years. So I am really excited about this because there are so many, different dynamics around the Black family. There are so many different faces of the Black family, so many different structures of the Black family. And so just knowing the ways in which we are challenged in society, as we discussed on the last hour with Domikos Chambers and Sean Simmons, there are factors that in fact impact us as a community. And so it's really important that we recognize those things, but that we also build strategies. I'm really huge on strategy building. How do we build strategies to overcome what these barriers are and what these challenges are? This is not something that we, just fall into. People who are most successful and who have the strongest families and have the greatest experiences in their careers, even, and in their relationships, they strategize around it. And so that is what I want us to be able to do today. So I am going to, are we bringing the guests on right now? Or are we going to a break first? I'm going to make sure that okay, we can bring them on now. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So let's bring our guests on now. I'm going to introduce our guests. Now, Anthony and Jason were contacted after they appeared in the Love Has No Labels viral campaign, which was shot over Valentine's Day weekend and has racked up a whopping 43 million views on Upworthy and over 59 million views on YouTube to date, and has been featured in every major media platform, including CNN, Good Morning America, and E! News. They have adopted 3 children, Marcelino and Jaden, they're 10 years old, and little Princess Jayla, who is 8 years old. Now, Anthony is a celebrity fashion stylist, and Jason is an LGBT advocate for over 25 years, and he also works at Emory University in their infectious disease department. He was born and raised in a suburb outside of Philadelphia. About 5 years into their relationship, they decided to start a family together, and 3 years later began the adoption process. In May 2014, they brought home their first child, Marcelino Anthony Henderson Strong, and then came 2 more. The family now calls ATL home, where they reside with their children. So welcome, Anthony and Jay.
Oh, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's great to finally meet you, Jason.
It's been a long time.
I have met your husband, but I have not met you.
I'm the super busy, crazy one. Two
You
jobs and school, and yeah.
I thought he was busy.
Yeah, I'm insanely busy, but it was a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, it's nice to meet you too. Thank you, and congratulations on adopting your 3 beautiful children. I've seen the journey, so I know that it's not been always easy, but you made it.
Thank you.
So we're going to go to a break, and then when we come back, I would love to delve into your story. We're definitely going to play some of this amazing viral video, and so so we'll be back. Stay with us.
I've always knew I was going to have a family. I imagine a bunch of little feet running around.
1, 2, 3, thank you.
A big family, lots of love. One of the things that I look at with adoption is that you're in this family because you are wanted. They want you. So no matter what happened, you know that you have been wanted. Marcel is a joy. He is a 6-year-old ball of energy.
All right, I love that video. So I would love to hear the story. So there's so many different chapters to your story. So I guess it should be specific, because even the wedding with Macy's was like, So maybe we can start there. But I also want to go from there to this journey of adoption. But if you could just share the wedding and Macy's and how all that came to be.
Well, Jason and I have been together for 15 years. And coming up to our 10th year anniversary, we decided to get married because we was thinking about adoption and all that comes with it. So we were planning our wedding on our 10th year anniversary. And then we got a call from a good friend of mine who knew another friend who was in dire need of a couple to get married at an expo that Macy's was doing for the LGBTQ community. So we just said, hey, we'll put it all in Macy's hand. And it was a fabulous experience to get married in front of several of our family and friends, but more importantly, almost like the world. It was so many people there for their expo. So it was a great pleasure and experience. And as with our family, the Henderson Strong family, everything is always spare the moment, a surprise, and a blessing.
And more importantly, they paid for everything.
They paid for everything.
Nice. I love it. Now that's a blessing right there. I love it. So, and so with that, so you get married. This was how many years ago? You said 5 years ago?
2015. Okay. Yep.
Okay. So in the intro, I put you guys together for 20 years. So, I
it's 15.
I give y'all extra time.
Close enough.
So at what point did you really start getting active and engaged with the whole adoption process?
So that would have been actually in about 2013, 2012.
Okay.
I knew, and like I said in that video, I knew I was always going to have children. Always, it was never a doubt. And we were in LA, and Alec Mapa. At the time when I worked in LA, I worked at the LA LGBT Center, and we have an arts program. And Alec Mapa came and did his one-man comedy show called Baby Daddy, and it was about the adoption journey. And I came home and was like, oh, okay, that's a sign it's time. And so I came home and I told him, like, look, this is what I want to do. I've told you this is what I want to do. I need you to either be on board or I need to go my way so I can start my stuff.
Sure did.
It wasn't going to be, if you don't want to be a dad, that's fine. But I need to leave now so I can go ahead and do what I need to do. So he was like, no, of course. And so we went through, first you go through an orientation, and then it was 24 hours, 4-week, 8-hour-a-day class. Wow. Wait, no, it was more than 32 hours.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a class. So every Saturday we had to do an 8-hour class, and for a month. And once you do that, then they come out to your home. and they with a fine tooth comb and specifically we had to move because our apartment, we had a 1-bedroom. That's all we needed.
Oh.
But they were, once you start that process, it was like, oh, okay, now we have to find a bigger place. Well, in LA at the time, going from a 1 to 2 bedroom could be adding an extra $1,000 to $1,200 to your rent.
California,
Yeah, so I mean, and it was insane. So we luckily found a really, really great apartment that was a lot bigger and not far from where we had currently lived. And so they came out with a fine tooth comb and they do an inspection to make sure that everything is good and everything is in place. And they signed, I think they came out and they do an interview. They do an interview with me by myself. They do one with Anthony by himself, and then they do one with us together to make sure that everything that is said lines up. And you don't know what questions they're going to ask. But the thing is to make sure that you're not trying to put on a show or lying about certain things. So they have ways of weaving questions to make sure that everybody's answers all line up. And so I think we had just finished our last interview, and they were going to come and do the final home inspection on a Monday. And we did our last interview on Thursday, and it was Friday. I was sitting in a staff meeting, and my phone would not stop ringing. And I called. Anthony happened to be in the hospital because he cut his leg. And I answered the phone, and the manager said, "We have a child we want to know if you would really be interested in. And it is emergency. We have to kind of get this ball rolling now." And I was like, "Well, we haven't been signed off yet. We still have to do one more thing." She was like, "Don't worry about that. I'm going to send you a picture. I just need to know if you're going to be interested." And and I was leaving work and on my way to the hospital to go meet Anthony, and he was in the ER room. He was in the they got the little room for you to sit in the bed. And so I walked into the curtain, and the pictures had came across our phones at the same time. And as I was walking in the room, I had turned my phone like this, and he was doing the same thing. And I was like, "This is who they want to go." And he said, "Go get my child."
Go get my child. Because
I looked right at the picture.
He looked at. He said, like literally, I walked in. He said, "Go get my child," and I walked back out into the lobby and I called her and I said, "Yes, we'll do this."
Just from the picture, absolutely. Just from the picture, I didn't need to know anything about him, his name or anything. I looked at the picture and said, "This is my child." But it was a great process. One thing I remember about it is sitting in all those classes. I think that everybody who gives birth should sit in those classes because we got the book knowledge and now we have the hands-on experience knowledge. And it helps. It really does.
Wow, that's huge. So I have a couple of questions for you. We're going to go on a break. When we come back, I need to ask some questions about this process. When you said they make you go through classes, they ask you all these questions, and yet people who are not fit still get to adopt children. What's that about? So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that. Stay with us.
Even if I try. Even if I wanted to, my love, she keeps me warm.
All right, welcome back. So I'm glad she didn't play too much of that because I was going to be messed up here too.
As most people.
I cannot get through that video without getting teary eyed. I mean, I just watched it again this morning. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I've seen it So I would love, just since we showed it, and there was Marcelino when he was young. He was 6, right?
No, he was 4.
4? Oh my gosh! Wow. So because
he was 4, he'd been 5 later that year.
Okay, got it. So there's the beloved son, first son, and he. So I'm curious to know how you all came to the video. Since we showed it, I want to hear that story too.
So, well, working in LA, everybody knows somebody in the industry.
Yes.
Everyone. So I was a manager for the company I was working with. And believe it or not, I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 people on my team were like active actors. Like, I mean, would have to take off of work to go film real jobs. So one of my staff members said, "Oh, my agent just contacted me and asked me if we knew anyone that was in a same-sex relationship. and or has a child. And I said, okay, for what? He's like, for this commercial. So he was like, I'm going to send you the information. Just submit pictures of your family and a brief bio about yourself. And I said, okay. So I emailed them over, and a casting agent in Santa Monica called us and was like, can you come in for a screening test? And I said, oh, for an audition first. And I said, sure. And then we got called back for a screen test, which we did that with the director. And then the final time we came back, we had to do it with the casting agent, the director, and like a bunch of producers. Mm-hmm. I mean, like a real audition kind of thing. Yeah. Like it's just you in a room of like 17 people watching you, and I was just like, "Oh, this is weird."
Yes.
Wow. But we did that, and then they would, of course, they wanted to talk to Marcel, just to kind of see what his energy is going to be and all of that. And we waited outside, and they came out and said, "Oh my God, everyone loves your family, and we want to bring you guys onto the project."
I love it.
It was a great experience. At first, I was kind of like taken back and like, I don't know, we don't fit the LA mold, far as in our looks and our body type. But they wasn't going. Yeah, we didn't have the six pack, you know. But they wasn't going for that. They really wanted a family that loved one another. And I think I asked one of the producers. I said, "So we got it?" They said, "Yeah." They said. We love your son. Like, so our son was our go-to. So, and they really treated us so well, because even after we got the gig, we didn't know how big it was going to be, the impact of it, how financially a blessing it was going to be. We just like, okay, we're gay. We want to show our love and our family. And so we was just doing it. It actually was a PSA at first. So it was like, oh, this won't go far. Right, for the ad council, it won't go far. And so we got to set, and we just started noticing how professional it was. Matter of fact, the day before, and everybody know I'm a wardrobe stylist. I'm a celebrity wardrobe stylist, and it was like, we have to go do a wardrobe fitting. I'm like, a fitting? I thought we were gonna bring our own clothes. And so we went to do the fitting, and then Marcel became the highlight. So he had a teacher. They brought a teacher for all the days we were on set. He had his own teacher, and it was just like, wow, they treated us so well.
We had to get we had to open up a Coogan account, which is an child actor's bank account, because it's under law, you have to deposit a certain amount into the child's account that cannot be touched until the child turns 18. We had to go get working like it was so much stuff that we had to we didn't even think about, that we had to put in the overdrive just to make sure that we were eligible to complete the project.
And I tell this story all the time. They treated us so well that they even adapted to my schedule. I told them, I said, look, we were shooting 12-hour days. I said, look, I have to get on a plane. I have to go to work. I'm doing some work in Philadelphia as a wardrobe stylist. And so they were able to work with my schedule, get me car service to the airport. And we did a quick photo shoot that lasted about 15 minutes before I got in the car to go to the airport. And this photo shoot only took 15 minutes, turned out to be a major campaign for us in print work for our family. And we just took the photo in, I believe in what was it?
Like an alleyway.
Like an alleyway. And he said, we just need some photos of your family. I said, okay, sure. We didn't sign any papers or anything. And next thing I knew, the ads are everywhere in Africa and all over the place. And so it just was a really great experience. And it just kept going and going.
They were in Africa.
Well, we did interviews and things of that nature.
So I wouldn't doubt it. That was a pretty huge campaign.
It is still going to this day.
It's still going, and and they picked the right song. I mean, there was just everything about it was just art. It was a work of art. It was amazing.
Until this day, it is the only PSA that has ever won an Emmy.
What?
It's a commercial, yeah.
That is amazing, and it was well deserved, absolutely. And then you get to be a part of it. That's amazing. I appreciate that. So, question: I noticed that both of your names have Anthony in it. Is that accurate? J. Anthony.
Yes.
And Anthony.
All our boys, all the men.
all the boys' names, and that was not by design. That was, it was the luck of the draw.
That is the name. Oh wow.
My middle name is Anthony.
Mine is Anthony.
It's Anthony. Marcel and Jaden's middle names are Anthony. That's what they were.
That is amazing. Wow. So I have a question. As you're talking about this process of adoption, and you're saying that you had to go through all these things. Well, recently during the Republican National Convention, Abby Johnson. She is a former Planned Parenthood worker who turned anti-abortion activist. And she talked about how her adopted son, she posted a video, she's not Black, and she adopted a Black son. And she said that it would be smart for police officers to racially profile her adopted Black son because statistically he's more likely to commit crimes and violent crimes than her white adopted sons. This is what I mean when I say, what kind of screening process did she go through? And I'm just curious to know your thoughts on something like that, and knowing that Black children are being adopted into families. Now, I don't want to say that that's common or pervasive, because I don't know, but I know that what she said was quite disturbing.
Well, you know what? Several thoughts. She's trash anyway, but so I can leave it at that. But so the thing about adoption is they don't go into political views. They do ask about if you're open and willing to accepting children of different races. Where we actually said no. We said we would do Black and or biracial, and that was it. And that's because there's such a need for homes for Black children.
Right. Why this concerns me.
Yeah. That the thing, I'm not shocked about that, because I was watching a documentary. It was about Black Republicans. That's what it was on. And they followed this one girl in Texas, and she was a Black Republican. But she was adopted into a white family, and they followed her through the course of the day. And she went on this gun shooting, duck hunting expedition, the only Black person out there. And the guy who she was with was a big Republican senator who actually ended up getting in trouble behind a lot of racial comments, but almost, and that was just recently, but she was used as a prop, to say how all things are good. So I'm not really fond of that, because there's a lot of stuff put into your head, subconsciously.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I would love to delve into that a little bit more, but we have to go on a break. So when we come back, I just kind of want to dissect that a little bit. So stay with us. We'll be back. All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and I am joined today by Anthony Henderson and Jason Henderson, and they are Jay Henderson, and we're really talking about their experience through, adoption and just building their family. One of the things that we were talking about before the break was really this idea of, when Black children are adopted, particularly by families that are not Black, how does that impact them? I noticed in your video, you said that your children they're wanted, so it's a powerful experience to be somebody that was wanted and chosen and brought into your family. From the standpoint of children who are in homes, what worries me the most about adoption is the end result. Where are these children being placed? And how are they being protected? There's just so many horror stories. So I know you were talking a little bit about just kind of what's happening with regards to, this woman who said, her son is more likely to be profiled than the other two sons. I fear for that son of hers.
Yeah, she's already instilled an inferiority complex into him, not knowing. I think it's sad. Unfortunately, I mean, because there's ways I can't even say I understand what she's saying. I kind of get the point she's trying to make. However, I think that policing is not supposed to be done proactively. It's supposed to be reactive. And she's making
the statistics are wrong.
Yeah, well, and that's true. Yeah. Because I mean, if that's the case, I guess we should start locking up a bunch of upper middle class and upper class white children now, because they're going to go ahead and start embezzling money earlier.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and you, I think Jay Anthony, we saw in your bio that you're an activist or an advocate, I should say. And I feel like just based on the lives that the two of you are living, that you're really also parental advocates in many ways, and in just the lives you're living. You may not be walking around with picket signs and so forth, but I would love for you to speak to how parenting has become a work of advocacy for you.
Okay, so I'm very hard on my children because at the end of the day, I need them to be able to come home.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we were doing we did an interview the other day, and they were asking us kind of like how we parent, and I say I parent from the point of risk reduction, and that's a term that we use in public health. Your job is to reduce the risk, and as a parent, my job is to reduce the risk that something happens to my child when they're not around us. So, should they be able to do everything that all other kids are able to do? Absolutely. Is that the reality of 2020 in the United States? No. So unfortunately, when my son is cold, I have to tell him, you cannot walk around with a hoodie on. I mean, with your hood on your head. Get a hat, and that's what you have to do. And you can have a jacket, but you're not going to have your hood up on your head walking around, because I don't need extra eyes on you for whatever reason. Our kids deal with certain things differently. My kid, my middle son, answering questions for him, if you're like being direct with him and he gets nervous, he could be telling you the truth, but how he responds is not always would make you think he's not telling you the truth. Right. And that's because he's a high functioning autistic child. So communication plays a part with him. He doesn't communicate like other kids communicate. So he starts to get fidgety and nervous, even though he's telling the truth. Yeah. And depending on who he comes across, it could look weird or look bad or look like he did something. Yeah. So it is my responsibility or our responsibility to train him that he can't do things that every other kid does.
Yeah. We parent hard, but we love hard. And I think it has to be a balance there. And that's some of the things we learned in our classes. That's why I think everybody who especially could have children should definitely go through these classes. So we parent hard, but we love even harder, and it has to be a balance. So with our kids, and we tell them, you're privileged. We're blessed to have you, but you're privileged to have some of the things that other kids do not have. You have two loving fathers. There's some kids who don't even have a father in their life. When our daughter, is so funny, I tell this story all the time. When our daughter came into our life, we didn't have a girl. We only had Marcelino, which was a boy, and then we got Jaden. But when we got our girl, I said, oh my gosh, I want to decorate her room. So we hired an interior decorator. So when she walked in the room for the first time, she just looked at it and was like, this is nice, because she didn't have any feelings of love and acceptance, and this is mine and it won't be ever taken away from me. So we give her the best, and we expect the best from them. So whenever we discipline them, somewhere right around the corner, there will be some accolades for something that they did, and vice versa.
Right. Well, I mean, and I love that. And one thing I didn't ask of you was the journey to the second two children that are now in the home. So there's a total of 3, 2 boys, a girl. We're going to go to a break, but I have to say that I absolutely love the parenting philosophy. It sounds so thought out. When you talked about your son being high functioning autistic and having to teach him strategies for navigating the outside world, that's huge. I think about the young man in Colorado who was tragically killed by police, and he didn't communicate the same way that everybody else communicated. And so, just the importance of that, I just have to commend you on that. We can only do so much, but it sounds like you're doing a lot. So with that said, we're going to go to another break, and so stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back. And I am joined by Anthony Henderson and Jake Anthony Henderson Strong, and we are talking about family and the power of family structure, and I'm loving the structure of your family. Question, I know that you talked about how you brought Marcelino into the family. Tell me about the journey for your other 2 children.
So Marcel was getting lonely, being the only child. And so we had occasionally talked about adopting another one. And we found an agency here called Families First. And they were really good. We've been working with them. And we went to an adoption fair, which is kind of when you go somewhere and have all the agencies have photos of all the kids that are up for adoption in the state of Georgia. And we came across 2 brothers, and everybody liked them now. And Anthony came across to me with a young boy and a young girl, sibling. And I said, I don't know. I said, that little girl looks like a doozy.
Yeah, you did.
I said, she's like, she's going to be a doozy.
And you said, keep them in the back pocket.
And I said, you can put them in your back pocket. But I said, I like these 2 boys right here. I said, they already had their little bow ties on and they looked really nice. And that fell through because so many people wanted them. And I hate to use this term, but it was almost like a bidding war kind of.
I've always wondered about how that goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So like basically what'll happen is there's like a bunch of families that want this one child. It's like this weeding process of going through, well, what about this? What about that? What about the, so you're like picking every little line to see kind of where would the best fit be.
Right.
We had never discussed the brother and the sister again. And one day a social worker called and said, hey, are you still thinking about the brother and sister? Which I was like, I had never been thinking about. And we had looked at the picture and kind of reviewed the paperwork. And I said, well, okay. I said, now that I've reviewed it, I'm not against it. And let's go ahead and move forward with it. It happened so fast. I'm like, that was June of last year. And by August, they were already living in our house.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a great experience. I don't know what I have with just looking at a picture and just knowing that these are my children, but it just seems to happen that way. And they came with a lot of challenges. And it's so funny because with the system and the schools that we placed them in, they were wondering, like, what are you guys doing? Because these kids have did a 360 overnight, and they have been in the system mostly all their life. And so we would take them back to the same doctor, the therapist, etc. And they would say, these are not the same kids.
Wow.
And I say, well, the difference is they're the same kids, but they don't have the same parents or the same guardian. It's us who really loves them and know what it kind of takes in this world to move forward, And so it has been a great experience. But one thing that Jason and I always talk about is the adoptions. The adoption part of it is when you have to go to a place and they kind of sell you on why these children will be good for your family, and you only know what's best for your family. Right. But when you see all the accolades and they try to feed you and show you pictures and tell you about the child. They tell you the good stuff, but they don't tell you the repercussions of the bad stuff or some of the stuff that they have been through. So you have to really sift through it. And it's almost like a cattle call. And I told Jason, we went to it a couple of times and I just felt so bad that sometimes the kids are on display as far as their picture. And sometimes you can go and the kids will be there. But now they have kind of worked the system to where they make sure that you really like these children. You understand their whole background, and then they'll let you meet them to move forward because you don't want to get attached on either side. So it has been a great experience. With our cases, a lot of times people say, well, don't talk about your cases, because our cases, in both cases, have been really easy, and it normally doesn't work out that way. It's really a tedious, rigorous process. But for what ours is, it's really God sent and a blessing. And because we're very spiritual, so we analyze and we look at things and say, okay, this is it. We're going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, because earlier Jay said that he watched a comedian who's talking about adoption. He's like, that was a sign. It's time.
Yeah. And he still watches that video like it came out yesterday. And I said, why are you watching? He says, because it just brings tears to my eyes. And now we watch their son grow up on TV. It's just really amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. So there's a lot of research out there that talks about the benefits of adoption, and actually specifically from same-sex couples. And I just wanted to put some of that out there because I think it's really interesting. And I think a lot of us don't know that. I think a lot of times when heterosexual people in general think about adoption, they think things like, and I'm sure you've heard it, things like, oh, well, you're going to raise them to be gay, or, how do you know that that's good for them? They need a mother and a father, so all of those things I'm sure you've heard. But what we rarely hear are the benefits, some of the actual pluses that come with adopting children. So some of them here, many gay couples, certainly those offering themselves as adopted parents, form relationships that are more stable. This was surprising to me. I'd never heard this before, but twice here it's mentioned that same-sex couples tend to have more stable relationships than heterosexual couples. Have you heard that before?
Yes. Well, and I think it's because I've heard it, and I'm going to say we can kind of attest to it. We're a member of a same-sex couple group. It's like a Facebook group.
Okay.
And the average length of relationship is like 10, 15 years, like average. You know, it's called For Couples Only, but it's all long-term relationships, all long-term relationships. And I think the thing is, by the time we're in a quote-unquote long-term committed relationship, and I know in LGBT relationships, so much stuff happens in the first 6 months that after you pass that 6 month, 1 year mark, we're like, okay, regular stuff happens that's not really bad for, that's, I guess could be like difficult maybe on heterosexual relationships. But by the time we hit the 1 year mark, it's kind of like we've done all of that stuff that may be considered really, really bad. And so once you make it out of that, you're like, okay, cool. What else could there be?
Right. Wow. Go ahead.
And I know you heard the joke, they say when the gays move into the community, it brings up the property value. So it's just like to have two gay Black fathers in your life at a time like this and in this climate for two African-American young boys, I think is a total blessing. And I can't remember the quote that one of our photographers gave us when we first adopted our first son, but I'd rather have two dads, gay dads, than not have any dad, so it's just truly a blessing. And I just, like I said, with two dads, I mean, because he's big on education, I come from the fashion world, and so we blend all that in together, and we have a really happy, loving, healthy home. I mean, our kids are typical boys. We have to tell them to clean up their room. I mean, brush your teeth, take a bath, the typical things.
Right. I mean, and I love it. And the other thing that was mentioned here, which I think is also this part isn't so surprising to me, but that children are raised much more open-minded and willing to embrace cultures and any, things that are not necessarily reflective of their own, and that their parents are more likely to be accepting of them, depending on, whatever direction they want to go in life. Maybe not whatever. I mean, there's probably some limits there.
Right.
But in terms of their identity, that there's much more acceptance that is attached to.
They're definitely exposed to more things. Things that are like appropriate. Like it's nothing that's just like inappropriate. But I mean, first of all, if you come into my house while I'm watching TV, you are liable to see anything. Nothing like grotesque.
RuPaul's Drag Race,
like nothing grotesque, but I love RuPaul's Drag Race, so I watch that every Friday. My kids have their own room, so they do whatever they want to do. But my oldest son Marcel comes down all the time while it's on. And is like, "What, you watching RuPaul's Drag Race again?" And I say, "Yeah." And it was one time I was watching it, and he came down, and he just stared at the screen, and I said, "What are you looking at?" He was like, "Her makeup doesn't look good." and then he just turned around and went back upstairs and started doing what he was doing. But I will say that as gay parents, I'm very cognizant of what we do in terms of exposure, because we are aware that if you have two dads, people just assume, because they don't understand how human nature works, that they're going to be gay. You're going to make them gay. You're going to make them gay. I'm like, when I tell you, I had my parents have been married. I'm 45. My parents have been married for 49 years. Wait, no, 48 years. Guess what? They have a gay son.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with exposure. I've been exposed to the best. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not how that works.
It's a lot of explaining. It's a lot of explaining we have to do to the children about how we govern our lives from day to day and week to week and month to month. And same thing with them going to school and talking to the teachers about they have two daddies. One is a father, one is the daddy, and get our names right. Jason and Anthony, father, daddy. And just saying, hey, please don't bring up mother, because that could be a trickle effect. That could be something that triggers them, to be sad or misbehave. So they have two loving dads and no mother in their life. But we have a lot of females. Most of our female friends, whether they're aunts and aunts, they're just like, they're our children. I'm like, no, they're our children. But we have a lot of females.
We have a great village.
Yes.
They're covered in that area. We're going to go to break, but I have to ask you the difference between father and daddy. And that's eye-opening for me.
Well, I'm father and he's daddy. We just really sat down and just literally came up with different names. I like father. He likes daddy, I guess.
Formal.
I'm very formal. And even when we was adopting our first child, my mother wanted to say, that's your grandmother. No, your grandma Jackie, until he gets familiar.
Nice. Okay. All right. We're going to come back. One more break and we'll finish up. All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and joined today by Anthony Henderson Strong. Fathers who are speaking on their experience in adopting three beautiful children. So there's this whole movement, this revolution that's going on in our country right now that I'm sure you've noticed. And we obviously can't delve too deeply in that conversation, but we do have Black Lives Matter, and we have All Black Lives Matter. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on, the two. For some people, it's one and the same. All Black Lives Matter. We are including all Black lives, but then you of course have a distinct group who are like, nah, that's not really the agenda we're trying to focus on. So what are your thoughts on that whole conversation?
So, if I can be frank, I'm not 100% on the Black Lives Matter train, and that's because the All Black Lives Don't Matter to the Black Lives Matter train. Mm-hmm. The Black Lives Matter movement was created by members of the LGBT community,
right?
And you have some that. Well, Black lives only matter if it's a Black man being choked out by the police. Right. But Black trans women are being killed every day across this country, and that doesn't matter. So, I can't stand in support right now with Black Lives Matter until all Black lives matter.
Right. And that's why I asked that question, because there is a difference between the standpoint of the founders and when you go to the website and what they stand for. And they stand for All Black Lives Matter on their website. But then you've got people who have kind of taken this Black Lives Matter thing and ran with it and do not reflect the values that the Black Lives Matter organization have established. So I just thought it was important to make that distinction and to point out that the organization has a very specific stated mission that includes all Black lives.
Exactly.
And when we talk about supporting Black Lives Matter, we need to go back to see what this organization has established and decide if we stand behind that. And if we don't, we shouldn't be declaring that statement.
But I also feel it's the responsibility of the founders to be more vocal in what they stand for. And I think I do think that part of it is they're scared, or there's some trepidation that they may lose some of the force behind it if they start including outside. Or following. So I think that they tend to just leave that up on their mission statement and leave it there, but don't ever voice it. And that I have a problem with.
That's interesting. That is, and of course that I didn't know. I shouldn't say of course, but no, I didn't really know that part. I know what's on the website, and that's what I refer people to. But that's an important point. Where's the voice? Where's the stance? Where's the activism as it comes to standing behind what you're saying? So I appreciate your point of view on that. So we are at the end of the show. And before we close this out, I just wanted to give you any final words of wisdom that you can pass along to a parent who is wishing to adopt.
My word of wisdom would be just be prepared, have your ducks in a row, and don't expect it to move swiftly.
Yeah, and be open-minded. I think everybody should bring someone in their home, whether it's permanently or they just mentor, but absolutely, break out your norm, share your gifts, share your love, share your knowledge. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think everybody needs to take classes, as you both have emphasized throughout the show. So I thank you so much. Is there any way in which, if anybody wants to follow your journey, is it pretty private? Are you just kind of like, nah, we're not for the public, or ways that people can reach you if you want them to?
Sure. Dad Squared 18 on Instagram is a good, that's our Instagram page.
Awesome. Okay. Dad Square 18. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you two joining me today. This has been a long time coming. I've been with the party forever. So I appreciate you all for making it happen.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Thank you. And so just thank you all for joining in to the live exchange. We're here every Thursday from 11 to 1 to have compelling conversation about life and change and all things transformation. So remember, it's up to us to right the wrongs, to speak the truth, to rise above, and to stand for change.
Yes.
Have an awesome week.